Well, hello and welcome back to Jones Financial Talk. This is Nick Jones from Jones and Associates Premier Financial Solutions. Listeners, if you'd like more information about what you hear on this awesome show today, you can find us in a couple of different ways. You can just go to our website at jonesfinancialtalk.com. You can also just give us a call at 541 500 4321. But I would tell you it's probably more beneficial to go to the website because then you can click on our radio page, listen to our past shows, and request topics for our radio show, like we have had a request for today. And, um, one of the things that lots of my prospects and clients ask me about, talk to me about, is the expensive things that are going to happen once they retire that they are not necessarily thinking about on a daily basis. And one of those that unfortunately everybody probably will face and is very, very expensive is long-term care services during your retirement years. And in fact, there's been many, many studies done, but most recently by Genworth Insurance Company just a few years back. They found that the typical cost of a semi-private room in a nursing home is nearly $8,000.
Oh,
And so if you recall, Medicare does not generally cover any long-term care expenses like nursing home stays, assisted living, and adult daycare. Um, Unless you spend all your assets down first. And so today I want to examine some more ways that you're able to address, possible long-term care costs, and also talk about, proper planning techniques, other than just long-term care insurance to help you with that topic. Mr. Tony Shore, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Great to be here with you, Nick. And I think this is a really important topic for so many people out there. Obviously, long term care is huge. I'm dealing with it right now with both my parents, and it's not easy. My mom is in long term care, and my dad should be. But we're trying to get him moved off the farm into an assisted living. uh, that's tough. He wants to stay on the farm. We're trying to figure out ways to maybe that can work. So it is hard and it is expensive, and most people don't prepare properly for it. So I think, healthcare expenses in general in retirement, as you've talked about on the show before, Nick, that's huge. And, it's expensive. I mean, just long term care, those prices, like you said, $8,000 a month, where my wife's mom is in long-term care right now, and she may need memory care, and that's $12,000 a month at the facility she's at. And they don't accept Medicaid, right? Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. We'll get into that, but yeah, so it's important to have a financial strategy in place, and to help people prepare for this, right, Nick?
Definitely, because so many people have spent the majority of their life doing the right thing to enjoy a great retirement, which is saving and having a stable plan for reliable retirement income. But
Right.
and most people even have so little debt when they retire, they don't really have any need to worry about anything. But as important as it is to to have everything organized, I have to remind a lot of people that I work with that there's just plenty of things along the path to retirement that are just waiting to trip them up.
Right.
I mean, clearly lots of things happen in the markets, family crises occur. Maybe you lose your job prior to retirement, right before, or, unexpected healthcare expenses are huge, expensive traps. And so, those are the things that you just need to address on a regular basis. And that's why it's so important that we talk about this multiple times a year on our show. So, there's lots of different flexible protection things that you can do, Tony, so that your health and retirement is completely covered.
Yeah. So flexible protection for a healthy retirement, that sounds good to me. What are the steps we can take to accomplish that?
Okay, so for me, flexible protection for a healthy retirement comes down to three main things. The first is protecting your family. I mean, you have spent the bulk of your adult life doing whatever you could to protect your kids, and therefore you don't want to become a financial burden to them as you age. Lots of my clients talk to me about that. Their children are in the situation where maybe they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, and they're just starting out to build their own nest eggs. And so they don't want to be a burden to them. Now, second, probably on my list, Tony, is protecting the choices that people have, right? And in my experience, nobody that gets older wants fewer choices in retirement. And so that means that, you want to continue deciding things like where you live and what kind of care you receive. And that's super important for many, many people when we talk through these topics. And then third, the main goal probably for many income planning discussions that I have is not running out of money. And, a
That's the
plan,
biggie.
that's the big one, right? And a
Yeah.
plan for long term care can help protect your assets in a way that ensures that you don't become a burden to your kids and that um, it will allow you to make those decisions that you want to make. But you've got to have that specific planning in place and discuss that on a regular basis.
Well, and I'm sure, I, like a lot of parents out there, worry about being a burden to my children in my later years. And that's not to imply I don't think my kids would help me. I know they would, but I want them to enjoy their lives without having to worry about me. And they'll have their own lives and families to worry about at that point, right?
They sure will. They sure will. Um, very important thing for me to highlight here, Tony, also is the importance of a long term care plan. And that's just not long term care insurance. That's not exactly what we're talking about exactly exclusively today. A long term care plan includes things like your living options. It's going to include a healthcare directive. It's going to include a power of attorney and some type of strategy that's organized to help try to cover the costs of long term care. And so it's not just an insurance policy that you purchase that's going to work, right? Um, and if people don't think about it just being a life insurance or some type of a policy that they're going to utilize, they think about nursing homes. And, those may be part of your strategy, but the phrase long term care covers everything, including long term care services, your support, your finances, where you're going to live, how you're going to navigate all of those things from a legal standpoint, from a family standpoint, from a social standpoint. And that's the point. There's lots of different pieces of this puzzle that you've got to think through and discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that, and so if I'm hearing you correctly here, the biggest takeaway I've got so far is that few things in our financial lives are really more important than making that plan.
And it's not difficult. If you're meeting with your advisor
Right.
multiple times a year, this is easily a very important topic that should come up that,
Sure.
that you can discuss. A solid financial strategy is extremely important regardless of your financial situation, your health
Sure.
situation, and your family dynamics. And so in addition, I think to working on a strategy with your advisor, a very thorough conversation with your family is extremely crucial. And I know it's going to be very uncomfortable to bring things up like finances and end of care life and beneficiaries, but it's super, super important. Oddly enough, my wife and I were watching a Netflix series last night called The Crown. Uh, you know,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and I don't know if you've heard of it, obviously
Oh,
about
yeah, I've watched a
about the
couple
Queen, right,
episodes. Yep.
of England. And interestingly, in the last episode of that, hopefully people have watched it, and I'm not ruining it for them. But a lot of it has to do with her end of life planning. And when she was 80, I don't know how factual this is, but when she was 80, 16 years before she passed away, they started making a plan. And the biggest thing was coming up with and discussing with their family the heritage of what it's going to look like for her. So, it's interesting when I watch something like that and I go, huh, okay, we're going to be talking about this, on the show tomorrow. Let's think through it. And so, one of the main things that is important is discussing your living options. I mean, do you want to stay in your current home? And if so, does it need to be renovated to address, your changing physical condition as you age? Or do you want to live with your children at some point? And do they know that? Are they on board with that? Is that what they're thinking should happen? And so those are very, very important things to consider. And then second, you got to make sure that you have a healthcare directive that outlines your wishes should you become incapacitated, because that will happen, unfortunately, and you just want to have that kind of checks and balances put in place. Third, a very, very important thing that we've discussed a lot is a financial power of attorney that gives somebody that you trust, like a close family member, the responsibility and authority to carry out your wishes. And then fourth, just discuss what may happen if you need long-term care services and how they're going to be covered. I mean, you've
Right.
got to think through the cost of everything. And so if you kind of follow those general rules, I think going in the right direction to start a good plan.
Right, and as you've said before, Nick, those conversations can be somewhat daunting, right? But after they're done, the sense of relief and you'll feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Communication with your family members about this is key, and communication with a financial professional to get a plan laid out. That'll take off so much stress, relieve so much stress and worry. I don't know, we put these things off. It's like budgeting, it's like planning for, our the future after we're gone. We Those are the things we put off, but if you just do them, you'll feel so much better.
Definitely. Definitely. And
Yeah.
I think most people, once you have a plan in place, they really grasp the concept, they understand it more. They're happy that they've kind of checked the box to move on. And
Sure.
that's super, super important, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Now, let's take a quick break here. But, Nick, before we do, let our listeners know how they can set up a consultation or get a hold of you.
Yep. So most people can just pick up the phone and give us a call at 541-500-4321. Or, like many of our listeners do, just go to jonesfinancialtalk.com, request any information that you're interested in discussing with us on there, Tony.
All right. Yeah. You fill out that contact form on jonesfinancialtalk.com, and someone will get back to you and get you the information you're looking for. If that's setting up an appointment, asking questions, suggesting a topic for the show, that is so critical. Make sure you do that. It's jonesfinancialtalk.com. And we're going to be right back with more of Jones Financial Talk right after this. We'll have to edit that out. I forgot video. We're not supposed to do those hard breaks.
Oh, good.
That's for the radio show. Here we go. Here we go. Edit that out. All right. So this has been a great show. We've been talking about elements that you call flexible protection, Nick, for a healthy retirement. And you addressed a number of elements in our first segment there, but I know you still have plenty more to go. What do you have for us next?
So the biggest thing here to think through is, taking a look at long-term care from an insurance perspective. That's what lots of people ask me about. And, though long-term care includes many things when it comes to our day-to-day lives, insurance companies and the government both define it very narrowly, Tony. And so the definition of long-term care that's typically used by government programs like Medicaid and insurance carriers includes 6 activities of daily living, or ADLs as they call them. And so I tell clients that these 6 ADLs are the things that most of us do every morning to ourselves to get ready for the day. Okay. It's getting out of bed, it's using the bathroom, it's showering, getting dressed, eating, as well as all the needed elements to complete each of those basic tasks. And many long-term care insurance policies use a threshold of being able to perform, or not being able to perform, I should say, 2 of these 6 ADLs, and that's what triggers your benefits to be able to get care. And as you discussed probably with people in the past, generally you see them defined in the 6 following words. They are continence, they are bathing, they're transferring, they're eating, toileting, and then getting dressed. And that's really what is the definition of long-term care when it comes to insurance companies.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard of that, the ADLs, and it's not difficult to see how being able to perform 2 or more of the activities of daily living would greatly impact your quality of life, and you're going to need help then. So if you don't have a spouse or someone else who can help with these tasks, maybe they're not physically able to help with all those tasks, or whatever tasks you can't do, you're likely going to need paid help, right?
Definitely, and as we discussed earlier in the show, let's just circle back to, the importance of having a long-term care plan, because I think it's just such an essential part of retirement planning in general. And it's common for many of us to immediately envision a long stay in a nursing home when we hear the phrases long-term care and long-term care insurance. But Tony, in reality, there is much more long-term care, much more to long-term care and long-term care insurance. And today it's estimated that 42% of people that are the age of 65 or older will use paid home health care. Okay,
Oh,
and so think about that. It's not paying to go into a nursing home. It's paying for what most of us need is just help at home. And so that's to keep ourselves in our homes as long as possible. There's lots of different policies that are available that allow you to do that. Now, about another 37% of people that are 65 and older will become residents of assisted living facilities or nursing homes along the way. And so as you can consider living in your golden years, you got to shift your thinking a bit to factor in, what it might be worth to you and your loved ones to know what options you have and what kind of a safe living and pleasant environment you want during those years. That's the
yeah.
biggest thing here.
Yeah. And as you've said before, many times on previous episodes, retirement success often really comes down to working with somebody like yourself, a financial professional, to create as many options as possible. You want to make sure you're looking at every possible option and, doing the math with a financial professional to figure out which one's going to work out the best.
Yep, and maybe a decade or two ago, it wasn't as top of mind for so many people. What's happened? The baby boomer generation is starting to retire and is retired, right? And so there's just a ton of people that are at that age where this is going to become very relevant. That and healthcare has gotten so much better to make us live longer. And so it's estimated today that over 70% of the people that are over 65 or older are going to need some type of form of long-term care in the future.
Wow.
And it's pretty obvious that the longer you live, the greater the chances that you're going to eventually need some type of care, right? Now, of course, costs are going to vary considerably.
Yeah.
Long-term care often happens right in your home, which is generally the least expensive option, and that is also the option that many of my clients prefer because the comforts of your home, just can't be topped, right? And so you can get 24-hour skilled nursing care in your home, and you can utilize life and long-term care insurance policies to help you with that. And so, if you have to go into a facility, clearly it's going to be much more expensive. And so, again, lots of different options, lots of different reasoning. If you think about it before something happens, you're going to have a better likelihood of a better outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. What are some of the options you go over with your clients, Nick?
So, probably not a surprise to you. Your first option, for extra care is typically either a spouse that's still not needing long term care services or a child. And if you're married, maybe your spouse helps you get dressed and gives you a hand to get out of the shower on a daily basis. If you don't have a spouse or a partner, maybe many of those things fall on one of your children. Now, it is important to consider, how gradual the aging process often is, and while it might be initially manageable for many of these unpaid caregivers, it may become much more challenging as time goes by for a spouse or a relative or a child to help you. I mean, think about how difficult it is for your kids to help you in that situation if they're still working. If they're an adult child, they're caring for their kids. There's going to be considerable stress on them and their own relationships and personal well-being if they're spending a lot of time helping you. And so, got to think through who's going to help in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, you do need to think it through. And again, it's good to sit down with somebody like yourself. Nick, I know you and the staff there at Jones and Associates, this is what you do. This is how you help your clients and people you meet with and can help our listeners out with this as well. And we're talking about flexible protection for a healthy retirement today. Long-term care is a big part of that. What do you have for us next?
So let's spend the rest of our time talking about long-term care insurance and different options to help here. And why would you even consider this? Well, clearly, if you do this in a beneficial way, you are going to, push the risk and responsibility onto the insurance company and away from your own assets, right?
Yeah.
And for many people, the first reason why they avoid purchasing a long-term care insurance policy is the fear that they're going to purchase something that they're never going to use. The other main reason, Tony, is, and this is because of older policies that were issued 15, 20 years ago. The other main reason is the unpredictability of premiums. They
Mm.
think that, and they see that premiums on some of these older policies um, are subject sometimes to significant increases, which leave the policy owner with very few choices that are ideal. They can either pay larger premiums going forward, they have a reduction in their policy benefits, or they actually just completely stop paying and having that policy in place. But in my experience, there's often a third reason why people avoid purchasing long term care insurance. And that's the reason behind why most people don't do it. And it's because they don't want to contemplate, needing these types of services and accepting that your retirement may not be, smooth, and running into a situation where you're going to need help like this is definitely an emotional hurdle that you got to get over.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why people don't wanna think about this stuff, they don't wanna think about, long-term care and needing that later in life. A lot of people work very hard to secure a retirement that's gonna maintain their lifestyle and have opportunities for time with family, travel, hobbies. That's what we all envision our retirement being, but, something that's gonna make those things harder isn't much fun to think about, but it is so important to be prepared, obviously.
It is. And, maybe to address the first concern that a lot of people talk to me about, lots of life insurance companies recognize that purchasing long-term care insurance can be complicated, and they've got to be innovative in the solutions that they offer. And one of the major concerns that most people have is the use it or lose it, like we've talked about. And so what many companies have done is they've created policies that combine both life insurance and long-term care, so that if you don't use it for long-term care, there is some type of life insurance benefit that's paid to your heirs. And
Mhm.
some of these policies also allow for return of premium if you don't use them in certain ways. So
Wow.
lots of different things to look at here with your financial advisor.
So you're talking about maybe hybrid policies. How many types of hybrid products are out there?
So today there's two different main basic types of hybrid policies. The first is a life insurance policy with what's called an accelerated death benefit rider. And a rider is just an extra clause that covers something that wasn't originally in the policy. So essentially in this case, accelerated benefits pretty much means exactly what it sounds like. It means that you can get the death benefit accelerated, or get access to part of it while you're still alive. And then the second type of basic hybrid policy is called asset based or linked benefit policies. And typically, this provides more expansive long term care coverage than a rider, making it a key piece of the overall policy. But let me just address kind of those asset based products a little bit more. Similar to life insurance policies with accelerated death benefit features, an asset based policy provides you with the option to use death benefit for long term care expenses. But here's the difference: it often includes a bigger pool of money to pay for long term care. And so, just like everything, don't just think I need a long term care policy, go out and buy one. There's different types, there's different reasons, there's different limits, there's different kind of thresholds that you want to make sure that you customize for yourself to get the best care possible.
Yeah. So where does underwriting fit into all this?
Okay, so yes, a big part. Underwriting is the process that insurers use to determine how much risk they're going to take on. And for life and long-term care insurance, the insurer will look at your age, your overall health, your medical history, and more. And for listeners who have gone through underwriting, what you most likely remember is a medical professional coming to your home, taking blood and urine samples, and getting some general health information. Now, if you're worried about underwriting, or if you've gone through this before and you weren't able to get the policy that you wanted, I'd encourage you to still reach out and talk to somebody about it. Because remember, There are always new products and different underwriting considerations. Some underwriting considerations that have happened and occurred today don't even require that. It's just a simple questionnaire that you have to figure out. So don't let the underwriting process be a roadblock, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Maybe give us a summary of some of the things we need to consider about asset based policies.
Okay, so as with any product, right, there isn't a one size fits all solution, like I mentioned before. The policy that might make sense for most, most of big chunk of money sitting in some type of low interest account that you don't have earmarked for anything else. So a lot of people can self insure, right? Now. Additionally, though, if your primary need is life insurance and not long term care, then maybe you select that option, and you get a higher death benefit on a standalone life insurance policy that has some type of accelerated death benefit, right? Um, for many people, just taking some of the funds that may be underutilized and leverage them um, helps. That's what you do with all types of insurances. Any insurance that you're buying and purchasing is allowing you to leverage for a very small dollar figure a much larger cost and risk. And that's what it's all about. You think about any type of insurance. That's what car insurance is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems astronomical to have a car insurance premium that costs you 150 bucks a month, but if you total the car, it's worth 50 grand. I mean, that's a good payoff. You don't want to get in a crash, but I mean, that's a good payoff, right?
Yeah. Yep. Well, this has been a really insightful show today, Nick. I just, there's so much great information here that people really need to know about. Flexible protection in retirement. You need to make sure you plan for it. You've covered a lot today. Uh, really, is there anything else before we go today that you want to add for our listeners out there?
What we didn't have the time to talk a lot about today, Tony, is the taxation of life insurance and long-term care policies and the huge tax benefits that are there. And so that's a huge other benefit that you should be talking to your financial professional about when
Sure.
you bring up this subject. There's lots of tax-free planning that goes in and lots of tax-free distributions that come out of these different types of products. So I just wanted to mention that so everybody had it. Please feel free to reach out to us listeners at any time at jonesfinancialtalk.com, or just give us a call at 541 500 4321.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Jones Financial Talk with our host, Nick Jones.